Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Alex, and in today's video we're talking all about walls and fun ways to decorate them. Now before we begin, I want to give a shout out to a viewer with the handle Lose999 for suggesting this video. Thank you so much. And if you guys have other design topics you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments. Okay, so there's nothing quite as boring and sad as plain empty walls, but I've got a lot of ideas to share today, including some unusual ones later on in the video. So let's get right into it. So the first item on my list is wall paneling. Now this is one of my favorites because whether you paint it an accent color or the same shade as the rest of your walls, paneling adds a layer of texture that can either stand on its own or function as a great backdrop for other beautiful things. These two examples are beadboard that covers the entire wall, which is lovely. In this photo, the paneling functions as a wainscot in a darker color than the walls, which grounds the room and looks great behind the dining table and chairs. In this kitchen, the paneling goes up to the ceiling and is kept light. If you imagine this space with just plain drywall instead, it would be less interesting visually. Here in this bedroom, the shiplap takes a backseat to the artwork and wall sconces, but really helps the space feel richer. There are a lot of ways to install it too. Here in this room, the planks are wider and installed horizontally and on the ceiling as well, which is a nice touch. This photo here employs the use of board and batten, which has more visual depth since the strips of wood stand proud of the walls a little bit. And I really like how on this image, they start the strips of wood above the plain wainscot. That adds the visual texture while keeping a simple backdrop for the decorative items next to the bed. In this image, the paneling is stained and makes the room feel warm while not competing with the artwork. I love this space too. The art really takes center stage, but the horizontal paneling on the walls and ceiling make the room even more beautiful. If you go the wainscot route, it provides an opportunity for a display ledge at the top, which makes a nice place to showcase decorative objects and artwork, which I love because it's really easy to swap things out. This combination of dark paneling and framed art here looks really dramatic. And on this example, they've taken the paneling higher up the wall, and instead of framed artwork, they've gone with a beautiful wallpaper. Which brings me to the next item on the list, wallpaper. These days there are so many designs to choose from, it's just amazing. The paper here in this entry makes a wonderful backdrop for the bench, sconces, and coat rack. Here in this bathroom, the wallpaper has a very delicate looking design that contrasts with the black beadboard wainscot, which looks very sharp. And this image here is one of my favorites. The plants and artwork just pop against the patterned wallpaper, and the overall effect is super stylish and fun. Now, a good rule of thumb if you're planning to layer framed prints on top of a wall covering is to make sure the scale of the pattern isn't too large or visually busy. Here in this dining room, they've gone with more of a grass cloth looking wallpaper, so the frame painting can be the star of the show. And here on this gallery wall, the paper is a small scale stripe, so just like the paneling from earlier, it provides an extra layer of visual texture that elevates the look of the room. If you want visual presence without hanging a lot of artwork, then I'd suggest taking the opposite approach and going with a large print. It's hard to tell the scale of this pattern here until you see it next to the armchair. It's big, bold, and beautiful, and this specific pattern I'm considering for my own home. I just love it. Okay, so these two photos here I want to share because it gives a great example of a before and after. Look how much more rich and dramatic the same room looks once you add some paneling and wallpaper. Of course, these aren't the easiest things to install, but if you're able to do it, I'd say the effort is well worth it. With so many colors and styles to choose from, I think any space could benefit from having a little pattern on the walls. Okay, next up, let's talk about a very popular option, which is gallery walls. I feel like everyone these days does gallery walls, and for good reason. It's a great way to display a large collection of artwork, and it lends a beautiful maximalist vibe to any space. These photos here have a really interesting mix of frame shapes and arrangement, but you'll notice here that they both keep some negative space to give your eye an opportunity to rest. In these examples, you'll note that the artwork all shares a common theme or subject matter, which is a great way to keep a gallery wall from getting too chaotic. In my own growing gallery wall, I'm collecting art with mostly gilded frames. It's coming along nicely. There's nothing that says a gallery wall has to only have framed paintings or photographs. Here on this staircase wall, they've put up a collection of mirrors, which is really beautiful. And this photo here is one of my favorites because they've incorporated their frame TV with the rest of the artwork to really make a nice focal wall. There's really endless options when it comes to this type of decor, so just have fun and experiment. Now, if the idea of putting together a gallery wall is daunting or looks too busy for your taste, then you can take the opposite approach, which is to use just a few art pieces but go big. Here in this example, the two large frame photos anchor the space, and in this image, the art almost fills this small wall. And bonus points here for the beautiful wood paneling. I love it. You can go vertical or horizontal with the arrangements, but the important thing is that the art is large enough to give it a commanding presence. If you go too small, the art can kind of get lost if the wall area is really large. In these two photos, the art is huge, which makes for a really dramatic focal point. One thing I like to do is incorporate a large art piece with other items, like here where I set up a display with a big photograph and some plants on top of a wood bench. Remember, anything can function as wall decor, like this salvage door that's been hung on the wall, or this art collage made of little plastic squares clipped together. Alright, moving away from framed artwork, let's talk about wall hangings. These two examples here of rope art are beautiful and a great choice if you're going for a bohemian vibe in your interior. Tapestries are also another good option, and this wall hanging here is nice with the gradient of colors going from light to dark. If you Google wall hangings, you'll find many different types. These two here are very different stylistically, but both provide a lot of visual interest. I love these next two examples. They're shaped like monstera leaves, so if you're a big fan of plants, these would be great options. Another thing you could display on your walls is a beautiful rug or two. Look how gorgeous these examples are. They really just make the room. The wonderful thing about wall hangings is that in addition to the variety of styles, they also come in many sizes so they can be used to fill really large walls. Many years ago when I was in college, I lived on the top floor of a 1920s building in downtown San Antonio that had 16-foot high ceilings. So I used this wall hanging to fill the wall and draw your eye upward. I really loved living there. Alright, moving on, the next item on the list is dishware. Now, plates may not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think of wall decor, but they can be really pretty when grouped together. On this first photo, they add a little interesting visual element in an awkward shaped wall space, and on this image here, they make a simple but stylish focal point above this buffet. Here, they've been displayed in a symmetrical arrangement, which together with the rest of the decor really gives this vignette a formal feel. Whereas here, the fact they're arranged more freeform makes this display more casual in style. I love seeing how many different ways people use dishes to create interesting compositions, but don't forget, they can look just as good arranged in a simple grid. They also look great when put against dark walls. I especially love these ones on the right. How fun are these? So just experiment and see what looks good, and remember, as you just saw from these images, just because they're plates doesn't mean you can't put them in rooms other than your kitchen. Okay, next up, let's talk about pegs and wall hooks. Now these are great because they're really just a blank canvas to display all sorts of neat things. You'll see stuff like this often in mudrooms and entries since they serve a practical purpose, but I think they'd work well in any space. And they look especially nice when paired with wall paneling. I love how they hung a little bunch of eucalyptus in this photo on the right. Even simple everyday items look more stylish when displayed this way. And here they've incorporated the pegs into the wainscot, which looks amazing. In this image, they've installed it up higher so they're able to hang a little light fixture off the pegs too. You can find ready-made options as well that make it easier than doing something built in. I love this option since it has a little display shelf above. Very simple and beautiful. Here's another coat rack that's just installed on the wall. And this photo here made me laugh a little bit. I love the horseshoe just hanging up there. It's good to keep it handy, you know. You never want to leave home without a single horseshoe in case you need it. Alright, next up on my list is wall shelves. Now these can range from a whole ceiling to floor installation or just a small shelf hung up on a wall. My favorite thing about wall shelving is the flexibility and ease in changing it up. And the sky's the limit when it comes to what you can display. Candlesticks, books, decorative items, you name it. You could do a single shelf or multiples, they all look good. This shelf here in this kitchen holds beautiful plates and ceramics, and because it's metal, it has a lightness to it so it doesn't look too bulky. In this example, the background is subway tile and board and batten paneling, and the shelves hold a profusion of flowers tucked amongst the rest of the items, which makes for a very lush display. Again, there are limitless options when it comes to styling shelves, and in this photo here, they've actually made a pegboard, so it's even easier to change the locations of the shelves in order to display treasured items and some potted plants. Speaking of plants, that's the next thing I want to talk about, so let's take a look at some wall planters. There are some really fun options out there, and of course adding some greenery to your walls will liven up any space. When you group enough of them together, it makes a very striking focal point, and I especially love how trailing plants look against a wall. Here in this example, they've mounted the plants on little plaques, and here they've created an entire wall display of just plant cuttings. Now you want to make sure that if you group wall planters together, they're all in a similar palette so they form a cohesive display. Here in this photo, you'll notice the vignette is anchored by the wall hanging and the plants are arranged around it. So even though they're not actually mounted to the wall, the plants still visually fill up the space. And remember, plants and wall shelves are always a great combination, provided you have enough light to keep them happy. Okay, we're down to the last thing on my list, which is any type of collection. Let's take a look. Anything that's hangable or mountable can work as wall decor. Here you see a collection of pretty cutting boards, and in this image you'll see framed vintage swimsuits forming a gallery wall. When you display collections like this though, I think you're legally required to pose in front of it with a big smile. Okay, moving on, here's a variety of mirrors above a wainscot, and here they've done something really clever, which is to take ceiling medallions that would normally go on a ceiling above a chandelier, painted them and arranged them like some of the plates we looked at earlier. Baskets also make wonderful wall decor. They provide a graphic element and look good against both light and dark walls. I have a little collection in my own home that I really enjoy. Here they've combined baskets and framed art over a backdrop of textural wallpaper, which makes a really beautiful composition. In this room they've taken a collection of colorful oars and mounted them up on the wall, and here in this space they've combined all sorts of items to make a really fun display. If you're going to go this route and put up things in lots of different colors, I'd recommend sticking to a white color for the walls so all the focus is on your beautiful items. Just a couple more images left. Here they're showcasing a collection of hats, and in this photo, look how fun these little flying pigs are. So cute. Take stock of whatever collections you have and see if you can find a way to put them up on the wall. This last image might be my all-time favorite. I just love how the globes start on the console and make their way up the wall on the floating books. And I'd never have thought to hang little school desks up on the wall. What a fun and unique display. Alright everyone, that does it for today's video. I hope you found it helpful. If you know of any other interesting types of wall decor or ideas that you tried, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about them. Alright, take care everyone. We'll see you next time.